Hello everyone, it's Jack from Visual Effects. So today we'll be looking at top tips for photorealism. This applies to any 3D package, not just Cinema 4D, just that's the one that I'm most comfortable in. And again, all render engines are capable of pretty much producing similar results. Just use Octane because it's faster at getting more realistic looking results, that's all. So tip 1 is about global illumination. What you'll notice about this scene, as soon as I put path tracing on, we get this lovely orange here. Let's just put denoiser on as well. Get this lovely orange bouncing back up here and here, which just helps sell that realism a little bit more because the light's coming in, bouncing up and coming here. Yeah, what we did was knock the exposure down a little, but actually with the sunlight really throw it in there. So we've got a really powerful sun because as it comes it's like this, and it's just in an environment that's really dark and an environment that's really light outside, you wouldn't be able to see both looking like that. So we really cranked this value of making it extremely bright, and then crank the sun intensity as well. The sun size just adds to the softness, which if it was really intense it'd probably be quite hard, but I quite liked the idea it was a little bit softer, the shadow, so we just went, was it about 6 or 8, so it just feathers it off a little bit and plus spreads it out a bit more. The change in the intensity of the sun is actually underrated because it can really add to the realism. So that's tip 1, using global illumination to create this lovely bounce light that in intense areas, and that's just about making the intensity of the sun quite high. Tip 2 is such a massive difference, and not many people do it either that start out anyway. It's the sort of thing that people just do automatically and not realise, but it's kind of a pro level tip, but people forget to do it at the early stages, and I did as well. So this is just a rough basic model of a house. All it is remember that these sort of edges here do not exist in real life. So all it's about is just going in and beveling these edges. And then when you wrap a brick texture around that as well, it'll look a bit nicer. So another good reason to do this is because the way that the light catches the corner of buildings then is a lot better. So if we just set up just a normal Cinema 4D light, it's going to be the corner is actually going to catch light, as you can see. Whereas if it was a sharp line, it'd be light, dark, where there's no natural gradual fall off. Whereas that's just going to help pop the edges, and if there's a major sunlight coming in from the side, even in this viewport without properly rendering and just using Cinema 4D lights, you can see that that line there looks really nice. And that one there, roof, no, it's just white. But here we can see like there's just a sharp line, which is really nice. So yeah, make sure you bevel your edges because there's no such thing as a sharp edge. I think even if you're doing a knife or it's really something that's supposed to be sharp, you'll still probably have just a tiny little bit so that it helps catch that light. But yeah, bevel your edges. Third really obvious tip, if you build in a city or a town, or if you're building anything where it's going to potentially have a lot of repeated stuff, don't repeat stuff. So if you're making it, unless it's obviously a cartoon, you don't want to do stuff like this because they're all very neat. And even if you add little tiny variations, that's a good way to do stuff really quickly, but subtlety is going to help. Obviously it's not a very detailed model, but what we'd rather do is we'd rather create a few if for the stuff that's closer to camera, create a few instances and actually make sure that they're not perfect. So when you look down the street, it's going to be a little bit more wonky. It's not going to be perfect. And these sort of details, just the fact that you're doing this, means that it's going to be a little bit more realistic, because it looks more handmade and human than literally just a formula that repeats the pattern. So imperfections, like if you're doing arc vis scenes, don't put the chairs perfectly underneath the tables either. Make sure there's a little bit of like rotations, because it makes it feel like it's lived in rather than just very static fake. Yeah, so another thing you can do is imperfections. As you can see, this is a pattern and it repeats and it doesn't change, which it wouldn't be like that in real life. So a good way to do this is you can throw a surface imperfection over all the bricks. So it's not just for making shiny things look scratched and stuff like that. It's useful for just breaking up patterns. The easiest way would just be to do it in Material Editor, but there's loads of ways to do this. So what we want to do is we just want to get this map. This is just a grunge map from Quixel, but we do them as well. Our surface imperfections do quite well actually. We're working on creating a few more. So what we want to do is we want to this is a simple way to do it. This is just to demonstrate the concept, not necessarily the proper way of doing it. And we'll drag that into there. So as you can see, it's kind of changed the colour of the bricks, which we don't want. We want this pattern to be a lot larger, spread across the whole thing. So to do this, we'll just use a transform. But again, using a mixed material will help create a lot better looks. So we just want to go bigger. And then as you can see, it's started to break up that pattern. It doesn't look like a repeated brick anymore. It might be worth UVing that separately though, so that you can slide that along. But if you didn't want to do that, then you just have to scale it up a bit more so it wasn't as obvious. And rotate it around. So there's a different look to it now, and it's really broke up that pattern with the black just appearing in the middle. If it's not obvious what I've done, then that's with a gamma cranked up so you can see the pattern on the bricks. It really does help make a difference. Again, all these sort of differences, if you did this to every material that you use in a scene, it's going to start looking class. Right, so to push this one step further, what we can do is we can have that black and white grunge map affect the roughness as well. So the areas that are black are more damp or drier. So it adds a different, so when you add a light into the scene, you'll see something happen over the top of the imperfection as well. So to do that, we could just use multiply again. We use this one, just plonk it in, plonk our existing roughness map in here. In fact, actually, if we had a color correction, we can start adjusting just the roughness. And to demonstrate this, let's add a HDR. So what we can do now is we can just look at our bricks from a slightly different angle. And really crank this value. So you can see now, like you can see the bits of the wall getting wet here. That's just following this pattern. So that's really cranked. But like, if we just come out and have a look and just spin the wall, spin the light round, we're looking at, So not only are we getting that imperfection in terms of the colour variation spread across, so it doesn't look as repeated, but also we're getting a roughness value that is completely different across, so that you do get some shiny bricks and some non-shiny bricks. And again, this is a bit extreme, you don't want it to be that much. Or you could go the opposite if you was going to make it look like there's dirt or dust, not just a colour change. So yeah, imperfections are a key to making stuff look amazing. So the last tip to photorealism is think about the details. So there's like, there can be litter on the floor, there can be plants, and even pipe work. So yeah, just think about details. And then obviously the decals as well. This sort of thing is a massive difference to just break up your textures. In Unreal it's easy to just paint these decals on, but obviously in other render engines it's a bit more tricky, but it's still doable. And you can even just have them on floating planes if you really need to, as if there's displacement properties to these decals. Obviously these are not coloured to match the floor yet, which we can do actually just quickly. Obviously as well, the big one that's missed from this, because it's obvious, is lighting. This doesn't look real because the lighting's rubbish, but spending more time on this sort of thing will absolutely help making it look more real and believable. So lighting as well, important but not noticed on this one because it's just quick tips. So hopefully you found this quite useful, and I'll catch you on the next one.